Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire. And when I'm not interviewing inspiring entrepreneurs, I'm listening to Stephanie O'Brien on the Moved by Purpose podcast.
That journey to entrepreneurship, from a $12 an hour registered nurse to being a CEO of a company was a fantastic voyage. And so I consider myself an entrepreneur at my heart. I'm a caregiver. And I think that's like this awesome blend of serving the world through compassion and with purpose. That's really the essence of entrepreneurship. So if you have an idea, then you might be an entrepreneur. If you have something you want to deliver the world, you might be an entrepreneur. If you have something that you think could change the world, you might be an entrepreneur.
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
Hey, Moved by Purpose listeners. It is Stephanie O'Brien. I am so excited to be with you today. I am excited also for you to listen in on this interview with Rick Martinez. He is a veteran registered nurse, writer, and successful entrepreneur. So this is a very fun and interesting interview. He's also the founder and CEO of the BizAcademyOnline.com. And the mission of BizAcademyOnline.com is to build the next generation of 10X entrepreneurs. The 10X entrepreneurs is the business leader who chooses to create the life of their dreams with purpose, passion, and profit. So without any further delay, let's welcome Rick to the show. Welcome to the show, Rick. It is so exciting to have you on today.
Steph, I am excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. And the first question I ask every guest, I love to get a background of your story. It can be personal or professional. What are the things in your life that has inspired you and led you to do what you do today?
That's a great question, and I don't mind getting personal. I think that's really the essence of connection with other folks. But what really drove me and what inspired me as a nurse. I've been a registered nurse for 20 years now, and also as an entrepreneur for the last 15. What really inspired me in the beginning was just my drive to want to be better, to want to be a creator, and to honestly to take care of my family and be able to provide them in a better life. A traditional, let's just say, well, not traditional, but I wanted to do better, be more. And then what's really driven me, because I think that purpose can be a moving target. What's been driving me even more so for the last few years, it's less me and more about my faith and the bigger picture. So, my drivers have changed, and I would say that my drivers now are the best drivers I've ever had.
So you were a registered nurse for 20 years. What are you doing? Are you still doing that? Or do you have like a side business? Are you working full-time? Do you now do your business full-time? I know I'm throwing a bunch of questions at you. How long has that taken? And can you tell us more about that journey?
So I still hold the license, and I have not actually done bedside nursing since 2007. Actually, my last day, and I was a military nurse on my last assignment. I was activated by the Army. And my last day, as we're talking today, the day before Thanksgiving, and your listeners may may listen to this, sometime in the future, but as we're talking today, Thanksgiving is tomorrow. And it's funny, but my last day at Walter Reed Army Medical Center was the day before Thanksgiving. That's the day I drove away from Washington, my last assignment, and came back to Texas. So as you asked, I'm getting these kind of nostalgic moments, and I hadn't thought about it. But here's the kind of the short and sweet about that is I became a nurse in 1995, and in the year 2000, I had been doing contract nursing. So there was a shortage of nurses, and there still is. And so I would be a fill-in nurse, a temp nurse, and I worked for agencies. And in 2000, I started my own agency. In other words, I contracted myself directly to a hospital. For me, it was the pinnacle of freedom. I made more money because I billed for and collected my own hours. I was able to create my own schedule and work at a hospital it was a hospital I enjoyed at. And just to preface, I knew my stuff. I was a good nurse. I was a trauma nurse, and so I was qualified, and I knew my stuff, and so I contracted. And then it wasn't planned, Steph, but the hospital said, Rick, are there more nurses like you? Do you have more like you? They didn't just ask for staff. They asked for more like me. And I realized then that how we carry ourselves and the message we put out into the world is so important. And I told them, yes, there is actually. It's my girlfriend, who's my wife now, and she's a nurse as well. And then later they said, do you guys have more nurses like you? You guys are awesome. And of course we did, because all we knew was nurses. And fast forward, Steph, is the company, when I realized it was a company and that I was a business owner now, a nurse kind of thrust into the business world, we grew to 600 employees, and we eventually grew to serving the military. We actually staffed military hospitals, and we did it in 19 or 20 different states across the U.S. And that journey to entrepreneurship, from a $12 an hour registered nurse to being a CEO of a company was a fantastic voyage. And so I consider myself I'm an entrepreneur it's my job, and at my heart, I'm a caregiver. And I think that's like this awesome blend of serving the world through compassion and with purpose.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I'm taking some notes right now because you're saying so many good things. And I love how you said how we carry ourselves is the message we put out into the world. And I think that is so, so true. There are people that listen to this, and a lot of them are seeking their purpose. They want to have more meaning and fulfillment in their work. And that might look like staying in a traditional role or branching out and creating work you love. Either way, it's important that today you are very conscious and aware of how you carry yourself, because that sends a message to other people. And you were doing what you do well. And I love how people ask, just doing the best that you could do. People wanted more of what you had to offer. And more opportunities were presented to you because of that. And I think people are not aware, or they might not grasp that how you carry yourself does open doors to a lot of opportunities. And you have to be in the moment and be fully aware of what you do today, because that can really lead to a lot of things down the road. And also, I love the contractual. I think that really helped give you a feel for entrepreneurship. Were you intentional about, did you prefer to be contractual over kind of the staying place at one spot? Is that something you intentionally wanted?
Steph, I've never been asked that, and that's a great question, because, now that I'm reflecting back, I didn't know what I didn't know. So if I had understood maybe more about building a business, or if I had friends who are entrepreneurs, there may have been an intent to grow the business and with my structure and all that. But the fact is, I truly just wanted to make more money, to spend more time with my kids. I had just gotten divorced about a year before I started my company, maybe 2 years before that. So, and ride my mountain bike more. Those were the things I wanted to do. It was really to make more money, spend time with my kids, and ride my mountain bike and do it on my terms. So, yeah, that was honestly my intent. I didn't think about growing it or what it could be. I mean, I was aware that there were staffing companies out there, but I was like, wow, I'm living my dream. I'm self-employed, and my check is a little bit bigger these next few weeks. And yeah, it wasn't until years later that I thought about it, and I'm like, okay, so now it's time to really pay attention to this company. Then it was an intentional growth, but I was pretty content as a contract nurse doing my own gig.
Yeah, I think I love non-traditional working models, and I think that contractual work or being responsible, some people are responsible for finding their own cases and things. That really gives people a feel for if entrepreneurship is right for them or not. Because I have a lot of people writing in and saying, how do I know if I have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? There's a series of questions that I'll ask them, but also I think you have to know based off of getting a little bit of experience. So I think starting contractual work on the side or part-time is a great way to get a feel for it, just a little bit. Some people will try to do a little startup on the side or whatever and I usually caution them to watch how much money they invest in it, to use it wisely. Don't go take out a bunch of loans to start something you're not quite sure if it's a good fit for you. But I think that we are transitioning slowly actually it might be more quickly than slowly, to having to have multiple jobs, to doing more contractual work. I see more and more people that have just multiple ways of making money, more than just one job that's their income. And we're seeing this shift to people really caring about having something purposeful and meaningful versus this is just a means to an end. And you talked about, you work with people entrepreneurs who build something for a greater purpose. What are some things that people can, to discern what their purpose is? And I get this question, it's the number one question, how did you find out what your purpose is? And how can you help me find mine, as if that's something I can answer in an email. What are some steps, for people that want to do something fulfilling, leave an impact in the world, have something meaningful, even something like you, where you just wanted to make more money, spend more time with your kids, and do, mountain biking or something you love, and you're creating a lifestyle and being very intentional about the lifestyle you want, because that all contributes to fulfillment and meaning. So what are some steps that you have maybe guided people through, or that you personally have taken or seen other people take, in identifying what it is that is fulfilling and meaningful for those that are completely in the dark?
Steph, that is, I don't know that my answer is like the answer, capital THE, because you're right.
Yeah.
You're right, because, finding purpose, it's this human time-honored journey. And I think that we all owe it to ourselves to take that journey, to get on that purpose boat, if you will, and sail across the sea. But if I was to think about simple steps, it's the first thing is to be aware, be aware and open to everything around us, because sometimes what we're supposed to do next, or those proverbial doors, if we're not aware, we'll walk right by those doors, and they may not always be open. Sometimes they're wide open for us to walk through, whether it's an opportunity or a relationship or a passion. And if we're not aware, we miss those things. And, I think the quote is, stop and smell the roses. That's really what awareness is. And it is so true when we're looking or searching or even just living, to be aware. And, the next thing is that to make things mean something positive. In other words, good things and bad things are going to happen, period. It's just the way of it's what happens, The choice is ours to make it mean something positive, even if it's bad. Yeah, we're going to cry, we're going to hurt. So when we finally wipe the tears away, or clean our knees, clean our cuts and bruises, it's time to make it mean something positive and say, what can I do with this? And then the next part is, it's to take a new action. In other words, now that we're aware and something has happened or a moment has transpired, we know it's supposed to mean something, and we've given it a positive meaning, take a new action, not the same stuff. Don't go date the same type of guy or girl. Don't go take the same type of job, because how's that working for you? If it hasn't worked in the past, take a new action. The final part, if we're truly talking about really not only finding meaning and a purpose, but how we then live it, it's to share it. If we're not sharing it, and right now, Steph, what you and I are doing is we're sharing, not only together, but with your listeners, and this message will live on in perpetuity. When this conversation ends between you and I, it will go out into the world when you publish it, and it will live on in perpetuity. And that's the beauty of sharing. because now the world can hear and they can choose. That did something for me, Steph and Rick chatting about purpose, or, I'm not really digging that. But either way, it's to be aware, apply a positive meaning to it, take a new action, and then share it. It's really, and then I think there's a common misconception that we should follow our passions. And I would just say this, because I do work with a lot of early stage entrepreneurs, is that if you're thinking of turning your passion into a career or a job, stop and smell the roses, because think about this, Steph. I'll use myself as an example. I loved mountain biking years and years ago. Imagine if I had tried to start a mountain biking store or become a professional mountain biking rider. It could have been catastrophic. You know what I mean? So sometimes just let your passions be something that fuels you. It doesn't have to be a business or your startup or your venture into the entrepreneurial world. And something you mentioned was, don't pour all of your money or something into an idea until and your passion doesn't have to be what you do for a living. It can be something that keeps you fueled to do what you're supposed to do for a living.
I totally agree. And I do and passion is a big thing. A lot of people want to know, how do I make money from my passion? And I think passion is a key. You've got to have some enjoyment with it. But I dig a little bit deeper with that, where it's not just the passion, but like what is the reason behind it? And a lot of people have many, many passions. I believe passions are developed. The more action you take, the more skills you develop, the more things you learn, and you can learn that you love something that you never would have learned you loved had you not taken action. So there's many things. Like, I never knew, back when I felt stuck in my day job, I never knew that I would love entrepreneurship so much. I never thought that I could do it. I didn't know anything about it. I had no formal training in it. I didn't have parents that were entrepreneurial, so I had like zero business, marketing, sales experience or training. And then here I am setting out to start my own business and to build something with meaning and purpose. And because I took action and took that risk, I would have not, I'm so blessed with the gift of having a new passion and loving what I do and loving the journey. I don't love every step of the process.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a grueling journey. And I do want to caution the listeners too, because there is a lot to entrepreneurship and having your own business. And a lot of people can just want to escape their situation because they don't like who they work with, or they're in a toxic working environment. So they're so burned out from working for someone else. All they want to do is just work on their own terms and be their own boss, and which that may be a good fit for you. But I've also had clients where they just needed to transition to a different environment and atmosphere, and they would be content. Because there is a lot involved to entrepreneurship, more than just doing what you love. It is a lot of grind work. It's a lot of, you have to be so diligent in learning, very disciplined. You have to be a self-starter. You have to learn how to delegate and to lead and to be willing to fail. There's a lot, and it does take a lot of character to persevere. And a lot of people burn out from the process. And don't stick to it and don't follow through, and I think good for them for taking the risk and stepping out and learning. But I think the passion, because they start out trying to follow just a passion. Like, have you ever read the book E-Myth?
Indeed, I have.
Yeah. So it's like the baker, the person who bakes really amazing pies, and everyone encourages her to open a bakery. Well, she just loved baking pies, like running a store and dealing with customers and now having a team and managing the books and the accounting and the marketing and all of that. And all she really loved to do was really bake pies. And, that's a common thing you see people doing where they're chasing something they're actually really good at and they actually love to do and turning it into a business, and it ends up being something that is a flop. I did the same thing in the very beginning. I was ready to be a health coach, actually, because I'm like, I know I want to be a coach, but what am I going to coach people on? And so I started teaching exercise classes and like, okay, what would it take to be a health coach? And I very quickly learned, although I love going to group exercise classes, I do not like teaching them and being responsible for that. I did not want to learn all of the science behind nutrition and the way your body processes food and all of that. I'm like, never mind. I don't want this. And so I transitioned to something different. So there is something you should do with taking action, but quickly learn from the feedback of it and transition to something else. So because you didn't, you mentioned you loved mountain biking. How did you... I guess you may have been intuitive to know not to open a mountain biking shop. And I'm sure you're very passionate about what you do today. But that wasn't the only the only reason you chose to do what you do today. So what were the other things that helped you realize that this was going to be something fulfilling and a good fit and something viable and profitable?
That's a great question, Steph. And the thing is, the last word you mentioned was profitable. And if we go into a business, that's really, unless you're running a nonprofit or you're a priest or doing something a nonprofit, that has got to be the operative word. That has to be the end state. And it's not about how much money the company makes, but what you keep at the end of the day. So what was my deciding factor it was honestly that, could I make money at it? And I was already doing it. I was already a nurse contracted through other companies, so I already knew the model was proven. And again, I didn't know this back then, the words model and profitability, scaling and growth. I just knew that, okay, Rick, you're already doing something that people want, and they're paying for it, and you're making money from it, and somebody else is orchestrating this, vis-a-vis a staffing company. So for me, it was a proven model. And as I think about what the listeners what they might want to do with what I just said, it's Google it. If you haven't, seriously, this is the wickedest easy test to validate an idea or to see if it could be a minimally viable product or service. It's GTS. It's Google that shizza. Go to your laptop and if you have an idea for cupcakes, for vegan stay-at-home moms, Google it. And if there is somebody out there doing it already, then an actual company or somebody who's actually creating this and delivering it to the world, then it might be a good idea. But if you Google it and there's nothing out there, it's crickets, it might be time to rework your thought or idea. And sometimes it's just that simple act. In other words, you don't need to go to a university and get an MBA to validate an idea or product or service. You don't need to go to, find a mentor or pitch Shark Tank. You need to Google it. And you can do that in your underwear from your house, before work or after work. And that is the easiest, simplest way to begin to validate an idea for a product or service. And that's really the essence of entrepreneurship. So if you have an idea, then you might be an entrepreneur. If you have something you want to deliver to the world, you might be an entrepreneur. If you have something that you think could change the world, you might be an entrepreneur. And all that discarded, if you have just an inkling to want to create a better life for yourself, make more money, deliver it with passion that can eventually serve the greater good, you might be an entrepreneur. And nowadays, the things you said, Steph, were so awesome because it's easier than ever today to be an entrepreneur. It's not scary anymore. It's just not. Sometimes we're in toxic jobs, like you mentioned. And we talked about earlier, being able to, when something bad happens, and that could be a toxic job, is we have an opportunity to create a new meaning around it. Or, we could be the change. What if the toxic job is waiting for a leader like you or that person to change the environment? So It doesn't mean a toxic job means you have to jump ship and go start a business. Sometimes it means leadership means you be the one to create change. And who knows? Maybe because you've done that, you're on the path to becoming the CEO. And maybe to do that, because you made a change in a toxic job, you not only are on a path to become a true leader, but maybe someday the company says, you know what, I'm going to sell you shares of the company. And so there are so many ways to become an entrepreneur. And it doesn't just mean I got to go start my own business. You know, there's so many different paths, and that's the beauty of entrepreneurship nowadays. Like today, it starts at your laptop or your computer. And if you don't have one, go to the library and log into a free computer. There is no longer any excuse. Even the book you referenced, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If people don't know where to get it, or they don't know, maybe somebody is just learning and they don't have an extra few bucks to go to Amazon, well, the library has it for free. You can probably go to the library and read it for free there. And in other words, where I'm going with this step is in modern times, there is now no excuse to not take action on your dreams, hopes, and passions.
I so agree with that 100%. And really, Rick, I don't know. People have to carry that message to others. When I first started, when I was just really unsatisfied in my career and I knew I was meant to do something more, I knew I had to do the work to find out what that was, take risks, take action, and just start moving. I would be redirected if I was going the wrong way. You know, some people are so afraid of taking a step in the wrong direction that, because I'm a person of faith, I believe that God redirects you when you're in action, even if you are heading in the wrong way. There are plenty of times where I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm not exactly sure what is the right move here. But I'm going to, with the knowledge that I have, the counsel that I've sought after, and to the best of my ability, this is the way I think I'm supposed to go. And it's either going to be rerouted through a closed door, or there's going to be a lot of other things to keep propelling me forward. So I think people just trip up with the action taking part. And you said it, there's so many things to make it easy for you to start. No one's asking you to go and do this overnight, or the first step you take is going to be this massive action. It's just, if you have an idea, for me it was picking up a book and reading it. And from there, and it was the book 48 Days to the Work You Love by Dan Miller. From there, my mind was expanded and I was inspired. A whole new world was opened up to me. I had no idea that you could think differently. All I knew was my own little world, and the people around me all felt like, this is it. I hate my job, but this is just, I'm going to have to bear it for another 40 years until retirement. And, or they think, they've had desires, I want to have my own private practice. I want to have a cupcake shop. I want to have whatever idea. But then they never do anything because they think they have to have capital, investors, loans, all kinds of expensive equipment. And you don't. If you got a smartphone, you have a camera, you have a video camera. There's just so many things. When I did videos, I didn't have a videographer. I just had a tripod with my iPhone and just started filming. There are things and resources there is an abundance of resources available to us at our fingertips, and so many people get fixated on what they don't have. And it trips them up and keeps them stuck. So you're right. Go to the library. Get on the computer at the library and start working. Overdrive is an app on your phone that you can listen to an audiobook borrowed from your library. So you don't even have to have Audible to listen to audiobooks. You could still rent ebooks and audiobooks from your library. So It is amazing the amount of resources we have available at us at low or no cost, and the business you can build from that. Social media has helped us market at low cost. It's amazing. The globalization, you can get VAs from around the world at low cost if you can't afford local labor. It's so mind-blowing how you can start a business without ridiculous amounts of capital. So I love it. And yeah, there's no excuse. There's no excuse to not get out there and start doing something. And that's my big thing. Just do something.
Yeah, just get out there and start. Something is right.
Yeah. And, and I think people just get so afraid of doing the wrong thing. What if I make the wrong decision? As if you're married to it and can never change your mind. That's the other thing. I'm like, you can always change your mind? Like I said, I started off thinking I want to do health coaching. I mean, it wasn't like I invested crazy amounts of hours and money before I started learning from the feedback. And I think that's the important thing. And I think some people are afraid of quitting too early because you hear like people quit just before a breakthrough. But it's a little bit different. Like if there's something that you're learning right off the bat that you're like, I'm not sure if I want to do that, or I'm not sure if I'm willing to do that. And that's not like pushing through fears and persevering. This is like, okay, like I started off blogging. I was starting to get burned out from writing. I'm a communicator. Like I loved meeting people. I love interviewing them. I love speaking. So instead of blogging, I just transitioned to podcasting. It's things like that where you just pay the awareness, be aware, listen to the feedback you're experiencing, and don't call it a fail. Just shift and transition. The more aware you are of yourself and your wiring, I think the easier this becomes. But that self-awareness I think it does take a minute to develop. What you enjoy, what you don't, what you know to be true to yourself, and stay away from the things that you know are not a good fit. What have you experienced that? Have you worked with clients that have tried to operate in areas where that wasn't their natural strength, or they were trying to do things that weren't necessarily in alignment to their wiring?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, getting in tune with our natural strengths, your one superpower, it's probably the best place to start. I've seen a lot and I've experienced a lot where somebody tries to get better at things they're weak at. Like for me, like, as an example, I try to get better at the numbers part of a business, understanding the financials, and I dug into it and I took a mini course and I really tried to understand it. And the progress I made was incrementally small. And when I put energy into the things that I'm good at, but yeah, I mean, it's just really focusing on what you're good at. And then also it's important to realize this is that, when Disney was built, it was Walt and Roy. One of them, they did it together. One of them built it and one dreamt it. I mean, Walt didn't build it. That's not his strength. His strength was as the dreamer. And being the dreamer is important. The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, one flew the plane, one built the plane. And you don't have to be the jack of all trades to pursue your passion or dream or to jump into the entrepreneurial world. But it's important that we focus on what we're strongest at and get better at it, because it was one of the lessons I learned is again, I tried to get better at the numbers part of the business, the financial piece. And I realized that I wasn't, and I was taking time away from what I was good at, my 5% superpower, and I was trying to grow that 95% that I wasn't good at. And I think, interestingly enough, is one of the things you mentioned was VAs and outsourcing. Even that is so easy these days, and that's what I did. I began to slowly outsource things that were time sappers for me, and also things that I knew that I would never really get good at. And then the magic that happened there, Steph, is that you start to slowly and surely build a team. And the beauty of that is, if we think of what we're talking about now as bricks on the path to that, to Oz, you slowly are building a team, and then you realize one day, wow, now we have a team, because alone we can go fast, but together we go far. And when you have a team that's really doing things, and that's revolving around that core purpose for a business, oh my gosh, it is an unstoppable force. And that's the fun of building a business, of learning. And, one of the simple analogies I'll use is I would guesstimate that all of the listeners have a driver's license. And that when we get off of work or we go to the grocery store, we do it almost like in a robotic fashion. We get into our car and we start, and then it's like, whoa, I'm here at the grocery store. And then when we're done, it's like, oh, I'm back home without even thinking. But there was a day where getting behind the wheel, we had no idea what that little lever was. We had no idea, seatbelt what. My point is that whenever we start something, we have no idea what we're doing until the day we do it automatically. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. And it's a skill that we learn, because even after you can get to the grocery store with your eyes closed, don't try that at home.
Yes.
Then there's an evolution, because then you can go learn to drive a car really fast, or buy a sports car, or become a professional race car driver. So there's always an evolution to everything, and entrepreneurship is the same thing. It's not this mythical job that only the people on Shark Tank can do. This is something anybody can do.
Yeah. It reminds me when you say the driving the car, the car I have now I've had for a few years, and I love this little car, and I will drive it into the ground. I have no desire for an upgrade, even though it's like a manual. It's a stick shift. And when I bought it, I had to have my mom drive it off the lot, because I didn't even know how to drive the car I just purchased. And so my dad was the one who taught me how to drive it, and I was terrible at first. And I started learning how to drive in the winter, too, which was even harder, because if you get stuck, it's hard to get it. That's a skill with getting a stick shift out, because you have to upshift while the car goes nowhere. It was something I was so bad at. And I would, avoid driving at first. I purposely would not drive in traffic if I could avoid it. Any incline or hill would terrify me if I had to stop on it. And I just remember for the first 2 weeks, maybe even a month, I was like, I would make me very, very uncomfortable. But after about a month, I was okay. And now it's like, man, I can talk on the phone, eat, shift, whatever, without even thinking about it, right? I get a steep hill in San Francisco, no problem. Not afraid of it. I know how to get around it, and I don't even really think about it. So, yeah, absolutely. I think it is that development when you first start out. And I think that kind of intimidates some people, is like, well, I don't know how to do it, or I don't know where to begin. And the thought of learning a new skill or something different can be a bit overwhelming or intimidating at some time, at some points. But I think the more you embrace that it's a process and realize, you're not going to be good at it. You're going to be terrible at it at first. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to feel a little weird, and you're going to have to push through it. But if you're willing to go through that momentary discomfort, eventually you will not even think twice about it and just do it and be really, really good at it and be all the more effective. And now you can start teaching other people. I love when people reach out to me and they're like, I'm just starting off. And it's like, oh, I so remember what it was like to be just starting off. And now, because I went through it and learned it, now I can start coaching others through it and teach them. And the impact and the multiplication that goes, because I decided to get past the overwhelm and the discomfort of developing a new skill and getting past basically my ego of, I'm not going to be good at this. I'm not going to look great at this, but eventually I will if I stay dedicated to it and committed to it and keep following through and showing up and ready to go. And now I love being able to teach other people. And I love that. I think there's a book called Rookie Smarts about kind of the advantage of rookies versus veterans, because they're so eager to learn. And so I think that even if you are kind of a quote veteran, where you know it, you're really good at it, you've been very seasoned and stuff, but never stop that eagerness to learn and develop more. I think there's a danger that the moment you think that you've got it all figured out, I mean, I just think that's not the best mindset to be in. That for me, there's always something to learn. We cannot possibly know everything. And when you do, that's not good.
Yeah.
So, well, Rick, how can people connect with you? Tell us where they can reach out to you and learn more about you.
The easiest ways, and I'm checking out this website right now to make sure before I say it that it's live. Okay, so the easiest way, there's two ways, and I'm saying this because we've had an interesting conversation around entrepreneurism. It's they can go to thehustleblueprint.com, and what that is, it's simply 10 powerful questions every entrepreneur should ask before they make their next business decision, and it's a wicked easy 10 things they can read. So it's thehustleblueprint.com. I reply to all my emails, or on Twitter. My handle is Purpose Hack. And it's the ampersand sign, and it's Purpose Hack. So either Twitter or that website, and that's the easiest way. And I'm pretty responsive to everybody.
Awesome, love it. Purpose Hack, that's awesome. Well, it was an honor, Rick, to get to know you, to hear your expertise and advice. Thank you for sharing the 4 steps of really just finding more purpose and meaning in your work, which is be aware. Make things mean something positive, and the choice is ours to do that. Take action and to share it. Those were really valuable steps. And for sharing the Hustle Blueprint. Make sure to check that out and connect with Rick on Twitter, and thank him for his inspiring story and taking the time to share his expertise with you on the Moved by Purpose podcast. Thanks again, Rick.
Steph, it was my pleasure. Thank you for your time. Whenever we start something, we have no idea what we're doing until the day we do it automatically. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. And it's a skill that we learn. There's always an evolution to everything, and entrepreneurship is the same thing. It's not this mythical job that only the people on Shark Tank can do. This is something anybody can do.
There you have it. That was Rick Martinez. Make sure you check him out. Grab that free resource that he has so generously made available to you. And once again, this should be airing still in December. And if you have not signed up for my email list, please do so to take full advantage of the 50% off all coaching packages. That includes one-on-one coaching. That includes group coaching. I'm practically giving this away for you for free. So if cost has felt a little prohibited, I have removed that barrier. So don't give yourself invisible barriers like excuses, fear, blame, all kinds of things as to why you can't do it now. Now is the time to act. This opportunity probably won't come back. I'm being really, really generous here because I believe wholeheartedly in what I do. I've seen the power of transformation with those whom I've worked with. And the beginning of the year is really exciting for me. And I think it's a really great time to take advantage of coaching because everyone has change on their mind with New Year resolutions and things, and I'm not necessarily a big New Year resolution fan, but I certainly am a transformation fan, and someone who sets intentional goals and then diligently works to see them through is my kind of person, and I love to work with you, and that's exactly what I help you do. I help you come up with goals if you're lost and have no clue what you want. I help you clarify your goals if you have a general idea but need a little bit more clarification with where you want to go. If you're crystal clear on your goals and you know exactly what you need to do and where you want to go, I help hold you accountable, help you strategize, help you really stay on track, and process through next strategy, next level to break through to even greater levels of success. All of this is what I do for you. So if you fit into any one of those, I'm your girl. Reach out. So take advantage of the coaching packages. You will find them when you sign up for the newsletter. You will be getting the information included in the newsletter every week for the month of December, so you know what one will be the best fit and the best package for you. And if you need any clarification, email us. We will clarify and be happy to answer your question. Most likely you'll be hearing from me more than my team. So anyway, have a wonderful holiday season, and I'll talk to all of you guys next week.